Well, my next guest has worked to change how we talk about mental health by changing the ways we talk about mental health from art to music to improv. Their work has been met in some cases, however, with institutional resistance, particularly here on the First Coast. Here to tell us about it is Gabrielle Magid, founder and CEO of Stronger Than Stigma. Gabrielle, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Anne. I'm excited to be here.
It's great to see you in the almost new year. This has been a busy year for you. You were on a South by Southwest panel talking about mental health and women. You were won an award this year from the UN for Logic and Peace. You've raised a bunch of money for some of the initiatives that you are working towards. So first of all, just remind us a little bit about the work of Stronger Than Stigma and the ways that you're trying to bring in different media for us to use to talk about that subject.
Sure. So I say that Stronger Than Stigma is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to mental health advocacy for the next generation. And when I say next gen, I mean millennials, Gen Z, whoever comes up after, in this transitional period of life, but also next gen, meaning a fresh take on mental health. What's the language that we're using to describe the struggle and also just the day to day of caring for yourself and your mental well being, whether it's a good day or a bad day? Um, so the idea, when you talk about business or, like in a consumer packaged goods world, if you slap a label on, this product, what is it that we're quote unquote selling? It's a sense of belonging. It's the power of knowing that you're not alone. And that in and of itself is magic.
And so finding new ways of talking about mental health, you have reached into, as I mentioned, a variety of different formats. You're a big fan of improv.
I am.
You've worked, music and music events into the conversation, trying to broaden it. You work in various, different kinds of visual art. Uh, but some of your approach has been a little too new, perhaps, for some people. Explain to us what kind of resistance you've met in some cases when you're trying to push the conversation forward or expand the ways that we talk about mental health.
Sure. Um, so when we do things like improv comedy, stand-up comedy, concert and conversations, what we're trying to do is bring people together. That's the ultimate goal, right? I definitely curate what goes on the stage, but at the end of the day, I want people to be able in the audience to be able to look to their left and right and be like, "Wow, everybody was brought together here, found it um, palatable, was excited to attend. Like, look, there are other people like me, right?" Um, the pushback I think has really come, and the word that was just used to describe our work was avant-garde, and it was said in a way where that wasn't supposed to be a compliment. Um, so you take that in. I'm used to hearing no, but I Google and I'm like, there are more definitions to this word, and I'm learning like, yes, it has to do with being innovative and experimental, and in my mind, throwing a piece of spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. And then the other part of it is you're so ahead of your time that you're not appreciated in the space. The people in the space can understand what it is that we're doing. Where, yes, we're dealing with a mental health crisis. We have a shortage of professionals that are qualified to treat mental health issues. Um, I can't change that, right? Like I can't be a medical school professor and bring up, the next crew of psychiatrists. There are people who can do that. There are people who can, eliminate some of the loans that it takes to attend med school and make it I guess, more sexy career, so that, we have a pipeline that way. But people rarely think about what it's like in the day to day. And that's what I'm focused on. People who are struggling are up against stigma. When we say stronger than stigma, the stigma is not just societal, where it's like, oh, somebody's a leper, let's run and hide. I'm focused on self stigma. How do you feel about yourself, knowing that you're struggling or knowing that you have this diagnosis, and you don't even need the diagnosis um, to be part of this quote unquote club. I joke that it's like membership, a lifetime membership to a club that you never wanted to join in the first place. But while you're here, there's inside jokes, like we can make the best of it. And that community support and feeling like you can show up outside of your home as your full self really makes a difference. It's not clinical. It's not sterile, the environment. It's beautiful. It's thought-provoking. It's colorful, and you don't see that in treatment settings or in what you see on TV about support groups. Those all happen in a church basement is what we're shown with stale coffee or whatnot. And that's not the vibe here. Millennials and people who, regardless of age, just understand what it is that we're trying to do, look at this and go, wow, this is different. This is something that could push us forward in the space and in the sector, because whatever we've been doing for the last 50 or so years clearly hasn't worked. So shouldn't we try something new?
And I know that you've said that you're doing fundraising in part to try to broaden your footprint and to make these kinds of events and services more widely available. But you've talked about the difficulty sometimes in fundraising when the people are looking for certain metrics, certain measurements of effectiveness, or perhaps just aren't familiar with the end consumer
Right.
of what it is that they're helping to fund. Can you explain kind of what problems you've encountered in fundraising when it comes to that?
Sure. So, I'm trying to eliminate as many barriers to the experience as I possibly can, right? So your end user is, let's say they're young people, right? They are at the beginning of their career. They're not the people who, have made their living and now want to give back to the community. I don't think a generous spirit is ever defined by how much is in your bank account. Like $5 from anybody who is willing is really well received, right? And if everybody in the world gave us $1, that's $7 billion. Like, oh my gosh. And I wish we could raise like that, right? What happens is when I'm speaking to people of different generations, if they can't relate to the struggle, they've never experienced it themselves, or so they think. Like the human condition really does include this wide range of emotions and experiences, whether you've dealt with grief before, loneliness, it really is applicable to everybody. And so it's hard to ask people who aren't familiar or don't think that it exists, or all of these things that like our grandparents would say, to then support what it is that we're doing, and also something innovative in the space, because they want to make sure that it is something that it has been tested. But with every challenge, I like to rise to the occasion. So they said, get metrics. I said, all right, let's find a Harvard researcher and professor to give us those darn metrics. We've got them. This is tried and true.
Gabrielle, what if people want more information just briefly about Stronger Than Stigma or your efforts, where would they find it?
We are on social media at Stronger Than Stigma is the handle. So Instagram, Facebook, and then also our website, www.strongerthanstigma.org.
All right. Well, Gabrielle, Magid, thank you so much for being here. Great to see you.
Thank you, Anne.